Hello, my name is Dagmawi and I have prepared this short video to highlight climate change impacts and vulnerabilities in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is located in the eastern part of Africa, also known as the Horn of Africa. Its capital city is Addis Ababa. The city is also the seat of African Union and many other international organizations. Ethiopia is considered as the origin of modern mankind and home to one of the world's oldest civilizations. It is a diverse country and rich with historical, cultural, and natural heritage. Since the last decade, things have started to change, and Ethiopia has joined the group of fastest growing economies in the world, with annual average growth of over 8% over the last decade. Ethiopia is among the African countries with high populations, numbers reaching almost 100 million. According to the World Bank, per capita income is about 600 USD and national GDP of over 63 billion USD. The national economy, as well as the overwhelming population, still depends heavily on agriculture and climate-sensitive natural resources. Nearly 80% live in rural areas and depend on agriculture for livelihoods. Ethiopia's topography is characterized by large regional differences. There are 3 rainy seasons with considerable spatial and temporal variabilities. In the lowlands, mean annual temperature ranges from 25 to 30 degrees, with average temperatures of 15 to 20 degrees in the highlands. The major influences of Ethiopia's climate and weather is the seasonal migration of the Intertropical Convergence Zone, or the ICTZ, and the El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO phenomenon, which significantly affect the rainfall patterns in Ethiopia and East Africa in general. Various assessments show that Ethiopia is one of the most vulnerable nations with low adaptive capacity to climate variabilities and change. Multiple socio-economical and environmental factors influence the country's vulnerability to natural disasters, including poverty, inadequate infrastructure, dependence on rain-fed agriculture, instability, low economic development, environmental degradation, and high population pressure, as well as weak institutions, all contributing to the nation's low adaptive capacity. The National Adaptation Plan of Ethiopia puts recurring droughts and floods as the most severe weather events with devastating impacts on the livelihoods as well as the national economy. The greatest and most recurring climate risk in Ethiopia, particularly for pastoral and agropastoral communities which inhabit drought-prone areas. Since the 70s, droughts have increased in magnitude, frequency, and impact, causing widespread loss of livelihoods, death of livestock, crop failures, increased food insecurity, and amplified conflicts over resources. Another important extreme weather event is flood. Highly erratic rainfall, both in spatial and temporal extent, spawned by the country's varied topography, causes flash floods and seasonal river floods, which are recently becoming more frequent, more intense, and also widespread. Famine Emergency Warning System Network map shows that large-scale floods occur mostly in the lowland areas, while flash floods resulting from intense rainfall events occur mostly in the highlands of Ethiopia. Reported mortalities from natural disasters between 1990 and 2014 also confirmed that drought and flood caused the most casualties in Ethiopia.
The future seems even more concerning because when we see projections for temperature, it's projected to rise faster in Africa than the global average increases. IPCC CM IP5 ensemble shows increases in mean annual temperature, and very likely for Eastern Africa for both representative concentration pathways, or RCP 2.6 and 8.5. UNDP Climate Change Country Profile for Ethiopia confirms mean annual temperature is projected to increase by 0.44 to 1.4 degrees centigrade by 2030 for RCP 4.5 and between 6.1 and 1.47 for RCP 8.5 respectively. Also, maximum and minimum temperatures are projected to increase by about 1 degree centigrade. Under the RCP 4.5 and RCP 8.5 scenarios, SRES scenario SRES reports on emission scenarios A2 and B1 both indicate increased warming in all seasons in Ethiopia. When it comes to rainfall, confidence level is low and long-term projection for precipitation is very difficult for Ethiopia. IPCC CMIP5 projections show increase in mean annual precipitation over areas of Eastern Africa for RCP 8.5. In UNDP climate change profile, sample runs for RCP 4.5 and 8.5 indicate average annual rainfall increase of 0.1 to 0.2 millimeters per day in the 2030s. Projections also indicate increasing proportion of total rainfall that falls under heavy events. Agriculture, livestock, water resources, and human health sectors will be most negatively impacted by climate change. Some put additionally infrastructure sector as particularly vulnerable. Increased minimum and maximum temperatures will most likely negatively impact crop yields and cause loss of arable land. Increased intensity of precipitation will cause floodings and soil erosion and affect crop growing cycles. Drought and erratic rainfall will also increase incidence of pests and diseases, overall affecting food security. Variability in weather patterns as a result of climate change has major implications for pastoralists and agro-pastoralists' livelihoods, who already live in a hostile and arid environment and already prone to frequent droughts. Increased temperatures can lead to reduction of water and feed resources for livestock, leading to lower productivity and higher susceptibility to diseases, while increased unreliability of rains might cause increased incidence of heat stress, higher mortality rates, as well as increased conflicts over limited water and feed resources. While recurrent droughts can contribute to loss of grazing lands, as well as may lead to loss of livestock-dependent livelihoods and forced migrations. Increases in the frequency of droughts, increased evaporation and evapotranspiration, as well as potential changes in rainfall patterns and runoff may further reduce availability of water, which might lead to increased conflict over usage of scarce resources, while increased intensity of precipitation may damage and destruct supply and water storage infrastructure. Recurrent drought may also lead to migration as well as disruption of hydropower generation. Warmer temperatures and variations in rainfall patterns associated with climate change seem to already alter the transmission mechanism of water and vector-borne diseases in Ethiopia. Incidence of malaria, dengue fever, and waterborne diseases such as cholera is likely to become more prevalent. And to highlight potential impact of climate change on the Ethiopian economy, as I've mentioned, the economy is highly dependent on agriculture, which is dependent on rainfall. As you can see on the graph, annual GDPs follow precipitation levels, and in years with low precipitation, GDP also declines. Climate change even impacts education in Ethiopia, where over 2 million children will be unable to attend school in times of drought. A good example of transboundary effect is on water resources. Ethiopia has 12 river basins. Out of these, 5 rivers cross boundaries, including the Nile, and flow into neighboring countries, and millions of people in the region depend on these. The confrontations between Ethiopia and Egypt over Ethiopia's construction of the Grand Renaissance Dam on the Nile is one of the high-profile international water disputes. The current political and military tensions may reach another level with reduced inflow and water availability. Some projections suggesting up to 1/3 decrease in inflow volume of the Nile tributaries by 2050. We have seen that Ethiopia is a highly vulnerable country with socio-economic and environmental factors contributing to its low adaptive capacity, and that climate change highly impacts key sectors, posing a serious threat to progresses made so far to reduce poverty and achieve sustainable and Millennium Development Goals. And also projections show that it would be a difficult road ahead filled with uncertainties, and without action, climate impacts could push additional millions of people into poverty. Recognizing this, Ethiopia has been making efforts such as the impressive community-based natural resource conservations to reduce vulnerability and mitigate impacts of natural disasters, which have won awards and received international recognitions. The country also has developed strategies such as the National Adaptation Plan of Action and climate-resilient green economy strategies. How this will be funded and implemented on the ground will remain to be seen.
Hello, my name is Dagmawi and I have prepared this short video to highlight climate change impacts.